Hello, everyone, and welcome to, I'm going to call this a podcast because it's a podcast in a car because we ran out of places we could go. We are going to be talking about Rise of Skywalker, and by we, I mean me, Gareth, and
Sarah. Hello.
So we went to see Rise of Skywalker a couple of weeks ago, and we made some notes over those few weeks, and we're going to talk about our thoughts on it. So, Sarah.
Well, I thought the film overall was pretty mediocre. I thought kind of like, I felt like J.J. Abrams was trying to please every single fan out there.
Ooh, that's always a bad thing to do, because
yeah.
you get pulled in so many different directions.
Exactly, and it'd have been really nice if he'd have just sort of picked a sort of a place for the film to go. So I think that's kind of what went wrong with the film, but I really loved the bits with Rey and Kylo, and I thought they were fantastically acted by both Daisy and Adam.
Yeah, I think they've. I think those two have been kind of a major driving force of kind of this trilogy. They are the focal point characters, and I know you've got Finn and Poe, and you've also kind of to a lesser extent got Leia in it as well. But those two, Rey and Kylo, have been basically the main focus of these three films, and particularly their interactions. Yeah,
and I think they've pulled the films through, because if we just think about The Last Jedi and the Resistance plot, which was kind of a bit pointless, really.
Yeah, well, it wasn't great. It was mainly to kind of spark off a lot of kind of their tension, and to kind of have that moment where Rey leaves her training, I think was kind of almost kind of to echo back Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, exactly.
And when she goes against her master and then sort of leaves, and I think definitely. I think definitely they pulled this film through as well, and I thought their characters were very well developed in this film.
Yeah, I think it was quite interesting to have Rey be Palpatine's granddaughter. I'd been thinking clearly she was someone.
Yeah.
I'd actually thought maybe that she was another Skywalker, watching some of the others.
Really? Oh, I didn't think so at all.
But I think that's because I didn't think of Palpatine.
No, I kind of thought that she would come from the dark side, because she was hinted. I wasn't surprised at all when I found out that she was Palpatine's daughters. I thought that was the direction they'd go on, because it was kind of hinted that there was some darkness in her throughout the last two films.
Oh yes.
Because she was like drawn straight to the dark place on the island with Luke.
Oh yeah, that is true.
But I didn't really feel like any of the darkness in her had really come to evidence, really. They were just saying that she had some darkness in her until this film. But I was kind of... I think it was cool that she was related to Palpatine, but I'd have kind of preferred it if she wasn't related to Palpatine, because I think it would have been more interesting, because obviously everyone's got a bit of light and dark in them, and now it's kind of like the darkness in her has been attributed to her legacy rather than just
being human.
Just being human.
Yeah, that is true. Kind of from that, but I think part of part of the thing with it is it felt a little bit like J.J. Abrams was kind of going with The Last Jedi. No. Because
I agree.
Because Kylo Ren did make a point of like you are no one, and then in this film he was kind of like, actually, well, no, that's because your family decided you should be no one.
Exactly.
Because they were hiding from this.
But again, I think that was J.J. Abrams, because people weren't very happy that Rey was from nowhere. And to be honest, I mean, I liked that, because it's like, you can be from anywhere and still make an impact on the world.
Yeah,
it was kind of giving that message, but it doesn't really fit into the Star Wars idea of the Star Wars themes of legacies that run throughout the entire movie.
I think it's one of those things where kind of the narrative expectation would be that she was someone, or she was connected to someone we had met before. Yeah,
so I think that's why J.J. Abrams decided to make her someone, because that's how it's been before, and that's kind of what the fans wanted. So I think that's why. It's a shame. I did like that she was related to Palpatine, because I thought it mirrored Kylo Ren well, because they're like a dyad in the Force, so like a mirror image, and she's light from a place of darkness, so her legacy's dark, but she's come out light. And then obviously Kylo Ren, he's come from a place of the light, and then he's turned dark. So it's kind of, it's a nice mirror.
Yeah, you kind of see also kind of a mirror in kind of their stories in Rise of Skywalker, where Rey is light but is kind of becoming slightly more and more dark, and then you've got Kylo who's dark and becoming slightly more light as it goes on, up until kind of, I think probably where is it? It's the scene where they're on the old Death Star, or the second Death Star.
Yeah.
Where kind of she confronts her darkness, and then she kind of starts bouncing back to the light, and then there's that moment where Kylo then he kind of keeps his trajectory going forward on the light side.
I absolutely loved that duel on the Death Star.
Yeah.
The waves in the background, the crashing waves. To me, it mirrored the scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin, the duel on Mustafar, because there was a particular scene that mirrored it, where I believe Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're on a metal structure, and the metal structure starts to fall down this lava waterfall.
Right, yes. Yeah.
And then so Obi-Wan jumps out, just like, there's a massive wave, and then Rey jumps out of that wave.
Oh, yeah.
And then Rey's kind of looking to see where Kylo Ren is. Just like how Obi-Wan was looking to see where Anakin was, and then Anakin leaps out from the fire and joins Obi-Wan for the duel, and there's that scene where Kylo Ren sort of comes out of the wave, and it was kind of, I liked it as well, because like the image of water is redemption, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that goes back to kind of the idea of baptism as well.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas obviously this and that battle between them both leads to both their redemption in a way. So obviously Kylo Ren starts to move to the light, and Rey stops going down the dark path and moves back towards the light. Whereas on the duel in Mustafar, it just leads to destruction for both the characters, which is what fire.
Yes, yeah, there is that.
Because obviously Anakin becomes Vader and is destroyed in the process, and I imagine Obi-Wan was destroyed for the rest of his life after having to duel his best friend like that. So
and he's also kind of lost basically everyone he's worked with, because all the Jedi's then are gone.
Exactly.
So there are two things there in that scene that I really liked, because when Kylo first appeared, I thought it was another one of those kind of force projections that they've been having.
Oh yes.
And
yeah.
so all of a sudden when he's actually there, I was like, wait, what? That was a surprise to me. But I also obviously at the end of that scene, the end of the duel, Rey, I don't think she doesn't kill Kylo, but she seriously injures him, probably mortally wounds him. But she uses the healing which she'd first used on the snake. Oh, I can't remember the planet. It was the one with the festival.
I remember, yeah.
So she heals that snake, which I knew would they bringing that in because they were going to use it somewhere else. And I thought, okay, that's where she's using it with Kylo, and this is going to be one of the moments that kind of part of the way of kind of building up his redemption. But obviously that's not where it ended, because it obviously comes back in kind of the very end as well. Yeah,
and there's that scene with Han Solo as well, which is part of his redemption as well. I loved that. I mean, at first I watched that scene because I saw the movie twice, because I saw it with you, and then I saw it with a couple of my friends back home. And when first I saw that scene, I was like, oh my goodness, they're just recycling the script. Oh, it's awful. But then I thought about it a little bit more in the second one, and it's kind of like when you've done something, when something's gone, a scene in your life's gone that, the way that you didn't want it to go, and you've done something that you're not happy with, you kind of replay it over and over in your mind, don't you?
And like how you could have fixed it, how you could have done it properly.
Yeah, and you kind of like adjust it, and I felt like that's what was happening in that scene as well. I thought it really perfectly showed that.
Yeah, and I think Han, well, I don't want to say Han, because I think he does explicitly state, I'm not Han, I'm you. Yeah. I'm your conscience. Yeah. Your conscience talking you through this. Almost kind of like, this is almost the light side of him that is kind of has gained a little bit more strength and is appearing to him as Han Solo.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of what it seemed to be to me.
Yeah, I thought it was. I love that interpretation. I thought it was perhaps replaying the scene again, but doing it how he wished he had done it. I think either interpretations
either way
work.
Works. I think.
Yeah, either ways works. And I think also a lot of people have been struggling to forgive Kylo Ren for killing Han Solo, which is understandable. Han Solo's a great character. He killed his father, but it was kind of like almost saying that actually it was kind of like saying actually Han's forgiven him, so we need to move on as well, maybe. I think
it's that. I know, kind of jumping back to The Force Awakens, I like that, because I mean it did a lot of that film was echoing back from A New Hope, and so that was the Obi-Wan moment where Obi-Wan is struck down by Darth Vader, and so I didn't mind that so much.
No, I didn't. I saw it coming actually, because I could see the parallels between the two movies, so I wasn't even surprised.
Yeah,
when
there are a few in both. There were moments in all three of the sequel trilogy where you're like, all right, that is from the kind of appropriate one, either the first, second, or third of the original trilogy.
Talking about Kylo Ren's redemption arc, what did you think about his death at the end of the movie?
I don't know. As it was happening, I wasn't too bothered with it because it had followed logically from what was happening, and because they talked about when Rey healed the snake, she explained that she'd given up some of her life force to heal it. So that followed that Kylo bringing her back from the dead was using all of his life force. But I think as we were coming out of the film, I kind of felt that it would have been better if he'd survived. Yeah. And they'd had kind of more of a moment. I think also because then you could have, I know they say that the Skywalker saga is over, but you could also then have some time of him kind of being light and wanting to almost kind of pay back for what he'd done, and kind of having a living redemption than just, okay, so he's given his life and there we go. Yeah, I wasn't too happy when he died. I kind of understood why they did it, because although he'd been redeemed in a way for killing Han Solo, he'd still done a lot of other terrible stuff that hadn't not necessarily been on screen, apart from obviously in The Force Awakens he commands his stormtroopers to kill a village of entirely innocent people. Yeah, which is what starts Finn off on his road. Yeah, and he'll have done loads of other awful stuff as well that he hasn't been redeemed for yet, so I could kind of see why they felt that he needed to die as a sort of consequence of all that, but I also thought it was kind of a bit of a cop-out. It'd have been nice if he'd have had to sort of redeem him, spend the rest of his life trying to make up for all the bad things he'd done. And I think it would give a little bit more hope, because, which is actually ironic because Star Wars is all about hope. That's the word they keep banging on about. But that kind of like gets rid of the hope. Like, so say if you've done you've done some bad things in your life, it's like you can't really go back from it, really. There's nothing you can do to redeem yourself, and it kind of, just randomly popped in my head. What they could have done in the next kind of film, because I assume there's going to be another one, is they could have had, the First Order, or the Final Order now, probably still has a certain degree of power. Yes, they've lost all these big planet-destroying ships. They probably still are around. So why not? You could then have the next film where the Resistance now has Kylo Ren involved, and Kylo Ren has now joined the Resistance, and you've got that story. And that'd be interesting as well, because there'd be a lot of tension, because would they actually let him into the Resistance? Well, that's that issue, like trust, and you then raise that question of, can he be forgiven? Yeah, exactly. Is it enough to turn to the light side to be redeemed, or do people think there needs to be something else that goes on? That does he need to keep proving himself? Is there any point where he can stop proving himself and he is accepted? I think we're just getting to all kinds of really interesting philosophical questions. It would have been so interesting, but I kind of felt like they fell back to the old sort of pattern where there's the light side and the dark side of the Force, and there's not so many grey areas. So, well, I was actually thinking about this the other day. It could have been interesting if Rey had essentially rejected the light side and Kylo had rejected the dark side, and they end up, I think it's Knights of the Old Republic, I think the Grey Jedis, where they kind of become not light side, not Jedi, not dark side and Sith, but kind of in between kind of thing, which I think is Knights of the Old Republic. That's what I'd have wanted as well. That's what I thought the sort of the trilogy was leading to, but I felt like at the end they kind of went away from just kind of went, okay, well, they're good guys, so they have to be on the light side. So that was a shame. I think there'd have also been some interesting tensions if
they knew that Rey had been communicating with Kylo all this time as
Yeah,
well.
that's
So
true.
that would have been interesting. It's a shame that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, you always get these with some of these films where you're like, oh, if only they'd done this, it would have been far more interesting.
Yeah.
But I think there was a sense of they didn't want to kind of go against people who had really enjoyed the original, which was very light side, dark side, and also ended with the person who was being redeemed dying at the end.
Yeah, I think they were trying to follow that
So I think it was following that.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's the end. What did you think of kind of the bits at the beginning?
The bits at the beginning.
The beginning. Let's just jump to the other end of the film.
So the beginning of the film with the when he was what was it called again?
I think he was chasing what they called like Sith transponders. They were kind of like the triangular things.
Do you know, I've seen a lot of reviews about that, so comparing it to sort of like a role playing game where you have to find this, then you have to find that.
Oh, fetch quests and go in and grab the various things.
I mean, they needed to move the plot along somehow, didn't they? And they needed to find some way of introducing Palpatine back, so...
I was actually kind of thinking, sorry to jump in, but I think it would have been better in a way if almost that had been the next film.
Yeah.
Like, Kylo Ren going and... Maybe he gets the... Because did he get... Like, I think Palpatine mentioned that he'd spoken to him, but did we hear that?
Oh, right. So I think the thing you're referring to was he was saying that he's been all the voices inside his head, which was quite an interesting idea, I thought.
Because I think that could have been something that you also introduce in a new film, and you have Palpatine kind of send him a vision of one of these things, and so he starts hunting for it. And then he finds it. So instead of having these very, very quick kind of scenes of, he's killing all these people to kind of find a map to kill, so to go to a new place to kill people to find the transponder, to get to, I think, Exegel?
I can't remember.
Okay, we'll say it's Exegel. People will correct us, I'm sure. And make that the film, and the end reveal of that film is Palpatine is alive.
Yeah.
And because you also get to like build in more things like, this is the film where the spy in the First Order who's leaking stuff to the Resistance is introduced and then killed.
Yeah.
And, like, why not have hints of that being in a film? And you have a new character played by Richard E. Grant who was Pride, I think. This is the first time he appears. Have him slowly kind of get more position over the military, and then more and more you're kind of hinting at things rather than just kind of going, here we are.
Yeah.
It did feel a little bit like the prequel trilogy, which had the first two films kind of flowing from each other-ish, and then here are all these major events that we're not going to show you in film, we're just going to kind of talk about in the third film. It did feel a little bit like that.
They did put it in, I mean, they might do a TV series, because between the second and the third film, they did the Clone Wars,
yeah, that is true. So,
which is very, I mean, I've watched a couple of seasons of that. It's really, really good. I would recommend it.
Okay.
Go
and watch it.
Yeah, it has some very melodramatic music to start it off, but the rest of it's and a very melodramatic voiceover, but the rest of it's very, very good.
Okay.
So maybe they'll do a similar thing with the Disney Channel.
Yeah, well, they're doing the new Disney streaming thing, so maybe there we go. Here's new Star Wars content that they're putting up on their streaming, so possibly that might be what they're doing.
I just felt, going back to your question, the beginning of the film, it was just kind of a plot device to introduce Palpatine, really. It wasn't particularly well pulled off. It would have been better pulled off, I think, if they'd have done it
doing like a full
way.
film, yeah.
It was spectacular to watch, especially when Kylo Ren was flying through that sort of space storm.
Oh, like it was like that red space storm.
Yeah.
So he comes through using the transponder.
Yes.
Which I quite liked later on. I think Rey, did she get his? Because
she did.
Kylo Ren destroyed his.
Yeah.
The one that she found on the old Death Star, the new Death Star. And so I think she got his and flies through. But then she takes her flight path and sends it to the Resistance to bring, which I thought was really quite an interesting way of doing it, so that they can get through safely as well.
Yeah. So cinematically it was gorgeous, but apart from that, I didn't
I think
really...
kind of that they could have expanded that out.
They
needed it to happen.
Yeah.
But I think thinking about it, in that third film, you could have also hinted more at Rey becoming kind of more angry at things, because this film seems to be kind of all of a sudden, like, she seemed quite calm at the end of Last Jedi, and then all of a sudden she's getting angry at herself for little things, and they could have, I think, started kind of at more of a slow boil if they had an extra film, which admittedly wouldn't have made this a sequel trilogy. But you have that slow boil building up, and then all of a sudden because I think the thing was they showed like her dark mirror on the Death Star, but that didn't. There wasn't a case of, oh, this could be a future version of herself. Like she's looking into a mirror of showing the future, because there didn't seem to be any way that she would go to the dark side, especially with it being kind of this being advertised as the end of the Skywalker saga. It's like, okay, well, she's not going to turn evil. It would
have been a great ending if she had done, though.
I think that would have been interesting if there'd been more films coming up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what she's turned up. Oh, okay. Ooh, how is she gonna be redeemed? How is that gonna work? And because actually, if you'd done that, you could have then flipped the Kylo Rey relationship, where Kylo's now on the light side and Rey's now dark.
And you wouldn't have had to have killed him off.
Yeah, I know. You're
so
heartbroken.
Sad. I am heartbroken.
So let's talk about some of the other characters. So, what did you think of Finn in this film?
Finn, right. So the interesting thing about Finn is, and we were just talking about this, was the fact that we don't ever find out his secret.
Yeah, like before we die, I've got to tell you, and then they're fine.
And we were trying to decide what his secret was. I thought it had possibly something to do. At first, when I was watching the film, I was like, oh, it's obvious that he loves her. Oh, how sweet.
I think that clearly seems to be how they set it up, because they've been hinting at it all the way through, and they kind of got rid of it's Rose, isn't it?
Oh, I know. I was so angry about that.
Well, because it seemed like, okay, obviously from Last Jedi, okay, they're gonna have a kind of a romance in this film, and then she basically doesn't. She doesn't turn up.
Apparently, there were some more scenes with her and Leia, but they had to get cut out the movie.
Oh, okay.
But she kind of just gets brushed aside. Again, I think that was fan service, because people didn't really like Rose.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like Rose. She got a lot of hate on social media. She ended up deleting all her profiles because people were just being really awful to her. But I liked her because I thought she brought in some interesting sort of ideas in those scenes with the Resistance in The Last Jedi. Brought in some interesting ideas, like this wasn't actually Rose, but it was in part of her scenes where Finn was they were on the ship that they'd stolen. I can't remember the name of the guy who. Can you remember his name? The one with the one who betrays
he's
them.
The one who betrays them. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's kind of like, he says he's working with the Resistance, and then he actually sells them out to the First Order.
So there's like this bit where he's showing them all the he's looking at, it's basically they stole a ship which is a weapons dealer's ship, and he said that he made loads of money stealing. Finn says, oh look, he's made loads of money stealing making stuff for the bad guys, but then that guy, I've forgotten his name, and also the good. Yeah,
he also said, and they're selling stuff to you guys as well.
Yeah, and I thought like the scenes with Rose and the Resistance really sort of brought more grey areas into The Last Jedi, and I liked Rose, and I thought she was quite funny as well. I enjoyed her character, like when she's like fangirling over Finn, then she
realizes he's trying to kind of run away. Yeah.
So I was really disappointed when they took her out. I actually liked her.
I think it was also good because it seemed to me, and obviously not everyone on the internet, this is obvious, but it seemed obvious to me that it was going to be Kylo and Rey.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were kind of like,
very obvious.
A lot of people seem to think, oh, okay, it's going to be Finn and Rey. So I think I quite like the fact that they'd kind of gone, okay, here is another person who seems to be kind of, in my view, a better fit for Finn.
Yeah. I thought so too.
But then like she's not really in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
But they got rid of quite a few of the characters in The Last Jedi. The commander, whose name I wrote down, Commander, I think Daisy. She had one line.
Oh right.
And that that's it. Like the really kind of restricted kind of. But I think that's probably because they wanted to focus on Palpatine. They wanted to focus on Rey and Kylo. So a lot of the kind of a lot of the kind of more minor characters just kind of had a lot more constrained roles.
Anyway, before we went off on a tangent, we were talking about Finn's secrets.
Yeah, Finn's secret.
Wondering if
so we're talking about I Love You.
You were wondering if it was I Love You. That seemed the most obvious thing because of the way they set them up.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was something to do with the fact that he was force sensitive.
Yeah,
because that's been hinted at. The fact that he could wield a lightsaber, the fact that even though he spent the entirety of his life being sort of brainwashed basically to follow the First Order,
and being basically a stormtrooper. Are they still called stormtroopers?
I think
I think so. Oh yeah, they are.
That's what I'm calling them.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking because originally I think they were clones, but obviously they were clones of, I can't remember. They were clones of Jango Fett.
They were, yes.
And now suddenly there's a kind of black stormtrooper, so obviously they're not cloning anymore. But I think they are. Yeah, they are still stormtroopers because they mention. When one of them had a jump pack, they were surprised.
Yes.
And they mentioned that it was a stormtrooper with a kind of a jetpack.
That was a nice bit of comedy there when he sort of gets flung into the. It's almost like do you know when a balloon when you put helium in a balloon and you suddenly release the balloon, it sort of flies off.
Yeah.
It was kind of like it was a nice comedy moment that reminded me a bit like that. But yeah, I think it was probably to do with his force sensitivity. Because I can't remember the scene. I haven't watched it for a couple of weeks, but there was a scene where he said that it just didn't. That he believed in the force, that he didn't used to, but he believes in it now, and that it just felt right. And
well, didn't he have a moment? It was on the planet where they got into. It was the ship that had the knife on. And it was on the same planet with the festival with the snake, and where Rey is kind of being pulled towards Kylo. He notices that, he senses that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So maybe he's realised that he's force sensitive.
Yeah.
And that was like, I can use the force too. But I'm wondering is that something you'd really keep as a till basically your deathball.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You make a good point. What did you think it was then?
Well, I don't know. I would have thought it was. I thought when he was saying it, I was like that he was going to say that I love you. But to me, their relationship did seem more of a kind of. Although that was kind of where my head was going, their relationship does seem to be more kind of brother sister.
To me, it was kind of.
So I don't think it's that.
No.
But I was just kind of trying to think, like, what could it be that would make sense to be a secret?
Yeah, I feel like their relationship's kind of unrequited love. I think, like, Rey doesn't feel anything for him other than friendship, but I think possibly Finn did used to have some feelings for her.
Quite possibly.
But I don't know. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was. I don't personally think it was that. I wonder if it was the force sensitivity thing.
It could have been.
But yeah. We'll never know. Maybe we'll get answered in some comics or something.
Yeah, maybe they are going to start kind of bringing in books and things. I mean, I think when Disney bought from George Lucas, they went everything that's not film or Clone Wars is non-canon.
Exactly.
Which I think they probably could have had more people on side if they'd said anything we do is canon, and anything that disagrees with that is not canon. Otherwise, we're happy for it to still count as canon.
Yeah.
But. I mean, they obviously didn't want to feel constrained by what other people had written.
How about Poe as a character? What did you think about him in this movie?
I was like, so let me read all the things I've written down about Poe. Okay, and I think nothing really struck me about Poe in the film. Like, I've not got anything written about other than Poe plus Finn. Because at the end they look lovingly at each other. Oh
yes, I was like, seriously, are they actually going to do
it? Is this going to like? And then they're like, no. But I think they're obviously planning on having him go with or be in a relationship with Zori.
Yeah.
Because they go to this planet, where he's kind of like. But I kind of like that he kind of put himself in risk by going to the planet because the First Order are there, and also people that he's assumably kind of double-crossed.
Yeah.
From the way that everyone was talking. Kind of to leave that group and go to the Resistance. He's obviously done something that they weren't too happy with. So I think there was that going on. Obviously there's some kind of relationship-y type thing that they're building there with Zori. But they kind of like it in a few things, like with that, they seem to kind of almost be setting up for like more films.
Yeah.
Like, so they can go back and they can talk about this is what happened, or they can go forward and talk about what things are like for them in future, and it's they seem to be setting up a few things with that. So, like, I didn't really get that much from Poe.
No.
This film.
I actually quite like Poe as a character because I liked him in the first movie, Force Awakens, but he he had a nice rapport with Finn, which I enjoyed. He was really cocky with Kylo Ren, and I liked him. And I was disappointed when I thought he died. But I've liked him more in the last 2 films because you can't start to see a slightly more negative side to him. Because obviously in The Last Jedi, there's his heroic complex where he just wants to be a hero.
He wants to be the big hero, cracking wise and getting everything done.
Yeah.
And everything.
And then in this one, I liked his relationship with Rey because he seems to be, and Finn does call him out on this, he seems to be unsympathetic towards Rey's emotional journey in this one. And I just like the fact that he seems to call her out a lot. And he's being unsympathetic because, Rey's got a lot going on. But he's saying things like, why are you training here when you could be fighting? You're the best fighter, why aren't you with us out on the front lines?
Yeah.
Which I can imagine if you were in the Resistance, you would probably feel like that if there's...
Especially if you're seeing other people get into fights who are then dying.
Exactly.
Because this person, in your view, as someone who... He's very much kind of like Han, is like he doesn't really believe in the Force.
No.
This person is wasting their time.
Yeah.
So why aren't you out and saving people's lives by getting involved in the fight?
Exactly. So I liked that side to him. And I like the fact that I think Rey's often going off on her own in this film, and she's doing that to protect her friends. She's doing that because she just needs to solve some stuff about her life and things. And I think there's one point when Rey's gone off to the Starkiller base, not Starkiller base, the Death Star.
Yep.
The remnants of the Death Star.
Yeah.
And Finn wants to follow her, but then Poe's like, well, she just keeps... He kind of says that she just keeps running off by herself, so, just...
Yeah.
We've got stuff we need to do here, just, So I like that. I like that dynamic. The thing that I like most is, like we were saying before, the fact that he calls her out on the fact, why aren't you out on the front lines? Because I just feel like you would feel like that if you were seeing, like you said, seeing people die every day. And there's a really good fighter who's just training safe on the planet, so...
So I think what we're talking about here is we like characters with lots of nuance that aren't necessarily white. They aren't necessarily purely white, purely light, or purely black, purely dark. Kind of that kind of grey. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons I was a bit frustrated with moving on to General Hux.
Oh yes.
Like kind of one of the early scenes with the Resistance is they go to get some files from a spy in the First Order who's leaking information. And later on, we find that it's General Hux, who's basically doing it to undermine Kylo Ren. And then his next scene, he goes, "Oh yeah, they shot me trying to escape." And then
like, who's going to believe that?
And then Richard E. Grant, playing General Pride, shoots him and goes, "We have found the spy," and that's it. And you could have, and again, I'm asking for another film. You could have made that more of a thing, slowly have him. Make him kind of question the First Order a little bit, or question Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And so he starts kind of not stopping the First Order. Maybe he just leaks files to interfere with Kylo Ren's things, so he gets stopped, so that he then looks better. And which was his motivation, which is what he said why he wanted to be a spy. Why he was spying was to undermine Kylo Ren. And then it's the Kylo Ren stuff that's being hindered. But General Hux is doing his own things to build up the First Order. Whereas in this one, he's just kind of undermining the First Order, or Final Order.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised by that revelation at all, because it's been obvious from The Last Jedi that he's been that he just does not like he does not like Kylo Ren. He does not think that he's capable of being the supreme leader, because he speaks in a way to Kylo Ren that you would not speak to someone who was in charge. Like when he's trying to shoot Luke with every single weapon they have, and then Hux goes, "Do you think you got him?"
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised to have that revelation, but I think that we couldn't take him seriously as a character anymore because of the way he was represented in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, there was a lot of problems with that.
Yeah,
I think.
the way that we were talking about this earlier as well.
Yep.
The way that he was Poe kind of basically prank calls him, and he's just falling for it.
Yeah, he just goes along with it.
Yeah, and he doesn't just shoot him like he should do, really.
Yeah, I think Hux says there will be no mercy and no surrender.
Yeah, and he makes this big speech.
And then Poe's just like, yes, I'm holding for General Hux.
And he says General Hugs as well.
Is it
Not
Hugs?
General Hux as well, just to add insult to injury.
But you'd think that General Hux would just go, no mercy, no surrender, and then just turn to the gunnery officer, fire at will.
Yeah.
There we go. And I actually think that would have made better. We were talking about this before, or I was talking about this before. It probably would have been more interesting then, because then it's Poe's kind of desire to be the wisecracking hero that costs so many lives.
Yes. Yeah.
And kind of, yeah.
I mean, I think we got across anyway, because he was just determined to kill that, to destroy that destroyer.
Yeah, he just pushed it, which I think basically all of the bombers died. All of them were destroyed.
I liked that scene just because it's like The Last Jedi. I like that scene because you don't normally see the other people in the battle. You just kind of see the main characters in the other Star Wars movies, and you had a background to her. You knew that she was Rose's sister. You knew that you saw her really struggle. You saw her basically sacrifice herself, and that scene is one of my favourites in The Last Jedi, because it just brings they're not just figures or soldiers in the background, they're actual people, and it just brings that to the foreground. So it's one of my favourite films favourite scenes in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, so you've got all the kind of she wasn't even really, you couldn't even say that she was kind of a minor or supporting character in the film. She was just in that short scene. And I think that was really good, just to go there are thousands of nameless, faceless people in all of these wars, and they are sacrificing themselves, and they're paying the price of all these actions.
Exactly. What else? What haven't we discussed yet? Oh, how about the final scene?
The very final scene, yes. Well,
what do we think
of
the final scene?
We've talked a little bit about Kylo's death, haven't we?
Yes, we've talked about the Kylo's death.
Well, you've got the notes on the final scene. Take it away.
I've got the notes on the final scene. So, the final scene, I think there's lots of angles you could look at this for. Obviously, Rey decides to take the Skywalker name in the final scene, which I know a lot of Star Wars fans weren't very pleased with. I kind of both liked that and didn't like that. I kind of it would have been nice, and I was saying this to my other friend when we were coming out of the cinema. He was saying that it'd be nice of her to say, I'm Rey Palpatine, just because it kind of honours her parents, who were Palpatines, but they sacrificed themselves for her protection. So it'd be kind of nice. She'd have been honouring her family through that, her family roots through that, because not all of the Palpatines were evil. Yep. But at the same time, I kind of like that she chose the Skywalker name, because it's kind of like, you can choose your family. It doesn't necessarily have to be a blood tie. You can choose your family.
I think probably it's also a case of she didn't really know her parents, and obviously Palpatine, being on the Sith planet, whatever it was called, wasn't really there. So they weren't really her family.
No.
Whereas, basically up until Force Awakens, she doesn't really have any kind of parental figures, and I think it did make sense that she saw Luke and Leia. Yeah. Because Luke acted to an extent as her trainer, but also kind of teaching her other things and building her almost as a father figure, but you could also say that about Han as well in Force Awakens, and then obviously you've got Leia kind of through the 3 films kind of building.
It's interesting did you just say that she built Luke as a father figure?
I think a little bit.
The thing is though, Luke kind of rejected her, didn't he?
I would say, to begin with,
he rejected her.
To begin with,
but then
throwing away of the lightsaber.
Maybe Solo would have been a better name. I was also disappointed that Kylo Ren didn't appear in that scene. I was disappointed about that.
Well, I think they picked Luke and Leia because they're Skywalkers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Han Solo's Kylo Ren's a Skywalker, but obviously he's got the name of Solo. Even if you say that, Leia is Leia Organa, not Leia Skywalker. So well, she'll be Leia Solo if she took Han's name.
That's
But
true.
it might have been interesting if she'd have picked the name Solo, because kind of
And then it's that Han and Leia are her parental figures.
And
but then Kylo's
oh yeah, that's weird. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe you shouldn't go like
maybe
that.
not. That puts a whole different spin on that gorgeous kiss scene between the two of them.
Incestuous kisses. It's what Star Wars does.
It's what Star Wars does. Just following the pattern.
I think it's one of those things where if you kind of go through all the possible names, there are problems with all of them apart from Skywalker.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's one of those things.
True. Mm-hmm.
Because I think, although I can kind of see Solo, because then you have that kind of, she's picking it because of Kylo being Ben Solo, and they have feelings for each other, but also because of Han and Leia, so there's that kind of connection going through. I think, but Solo's not like one of the kind of big names. Skywalker is a name that's been in all of them, all of the films now, so yeah, every film has had a Skywalker at the end. So
yeah, just following the pattern.
Yeah.
How about the lightsaber? I liked her new lightsaber.
I can't remember. What was it?
Oh my goodness. The lightsaber, it was, do you know her old staff?
Oh yeah.
So I think it was the grip from, if that's what it's called, the grip from that staff, and then it was yellow. The lightsaber was yellow.
Wait, it's not me. Oh, I remember. Yeah, because I remember thinking there weren't that many. Not many people have had yellow lightsabers.
No one in the films. I mean, maybe there's a couple in the Clone Wars, but absolutely no one in the films have had yellow lightsabers. It's more, we're moving back to Knights of the Old Republic and stuff, then, aren't we?
Well, I think there were some minor characters. I think there was a guy called Plo Koon, who was one of the Jedi Council in the prequel trilogy. Prequel trilogy. He had a yellow lightsaber, but he doesn't use it that much. And I think that might actually make that. He certainly does in the game, in the Star Wars Episode 1 video game. He has a yellow lightsaber. He might have it in. He appears in, I think, Episode 2, and he might have a yellow one there. But I haven't actually watched the prequel trilogy in a while, so I might be putting random facts together.
I don't remember anyone having a yellow lightsaber in the prequel trilogy. I hadn't seen it for a while either. But we were saying earlier...
Next movie day, we're going to watch the prequels.
Day, yeah. That'd be fun.
Next podcast.
I actually love the prequels. A lot of people don't like them. I mean, I know that they're bad movies, but I do enjoy them, just, gotta say.
I think they're one of the things that I'm probably enjoy more with people.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of in there that you can take the mick of.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about the yellow lightsaber. We were saying earlier that if you think about the Knights of the Old Republic game, it was the Jedi Sentinels that had the yellow lightsaber.
I can't remember what the three types are. There's Guardian and Sentinel, definitely. I can't remember
and the other one's Consular. That's the one with the green lightsaber.
Yeah.
And the Guardians are the blue lightsabers. They're the fighters, aren't they? The Consulars are the Force users. They've got the green lightsaber, so that would be Yoda, I suppose, because he tends to use the Force, especially in his, battle with Palpatine in the Revenge of the Sith. That's more of a Force battle. Yeah. And then obviously Obi-Wan and Anakin are more sort of lightsabers, fighters. Yeah.
I think is yellow. I'm wondering. I can't remember. I have played Knights of the Old Republic. Is yellow kind of? They're the more kind of. Not quite Force people, they kind of slightly tricksy, aren't they, I think? Yeah,
they kind of seem
stealthy, I think.
Yeah, they kind of see, that the Force and being a lightsaber wielder is not going to get them everywhere, and they need to learn other skills to get them places.
I think so, yeah.
So like, and this is very rare, like technical skills, and they need to be good flyers and stuff. They need all these different skills.
For those who play kind of other RPGs, you've got your fighter, which is the Guardian.
Yeah.
You've got your wizard, who's the Force user, who's your Consular, and then the Sentinel is like the rogue, like doing bits and pieces.
Yeah. Which is very rare because she's a smuggler. She can fix robots. She can fly.
Yes.
So I thought that went really well. And we were also saying that it kind of, I was wondering if it was actually double bladed. It looked like it. We only see one blade in the final scene, but it kind of felt like to me that it should be double bladed.
Kind of like her staff. So that would make it. That would technically make it a light lance, I think.
Oh right, I don't know.
That's what Darth Maul has in Phantom Menace. It's the light lance going both ways.
Lightsaber.
Well, I don't know because I think we also see when Darth Maul uses his he can have only one active, so it could be that she makes it into.
No, she uses both of them. You really need to watch the prequels.
We do.
Again.
I'm fairly sure at one point he does only activate one end, or am I making that up?
What he does though, I've seen this, I love this lightsaber battle. So he activates one end of the lightsaber. So it looks like he's just got your standard
the lightsaber.
single bladed
and
lightsaber,
then he has the other
and
one.
then the other one comes out.
Oh, okay. So maybe you can just activate one, and then he activated the other one. So maybe that's what Rey was doing.
Yeah, that's what I hope, because I think a double-bladed lightsaber would work for her. We were saying that it kind of echoed Bastilla's lightsaber.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Well, I actually.
She looks like her, I think.
Have you played Knights of the Old Republic?
No, but my family, my dad played it and my sister played it, so I know a little bit about it, so I know the story.
Okay, do you know what happens with Bastila?
Yes, she turns to the dark side.
Okay, yeah, so she turns to the dark side. I think partly it's because of her feelings for Revan.
Yeah, and don't they have like a connection in the Force as well, just like Rey and Kylo do?
They do. And that was kind of what I was kind of going to say. Like, is almost kind of Rey echoes that, where she kind of almost turned to the dark side because of her feelings for someone that she has a Force connection with. So,
so yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
So there seems to be quite a few connections there.
And if you look at, is it Revan?
Yes.
You look at his outfit, it kind of he's got the helmet. It kind
he's
of
got like the
looks
helmet with the
Kylo
lines,
Ren,
hasn't
doesn't
he?
it?
Yeah.
And I think other people have picked up on this before as well. I'm
true.
sure I've seen it in other podcasts, but yeah, a lot of people have wondered that.
Yeah, I think you might. Yeah, because I have played it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I liked that. I like that echo. And also, if you think about, if you think about the colours, so you've got green light and red light, you could argue, if you wanted to, if you mix them together, it makes yellow
light,
so she's got a bit of dark in her, a bit of light in her.
Yeah,
Perhaps,
bringing
maybe.
physics into this.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you could argue that as well.
Yeah, you got all those. Yeah.
So I kind of liked that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, are there any other little bits and pieces you want to
Oh, let me think.
talk about?
Can you think of anything? I think we've talked about most things, haven't we?
I've just got one little thing
Yeah, go on.
to add, which is just looking at all 9 films.
Yeah.
You've got like the prequel trilogy that are basically Anakin's story. Then you've got the original trilogy, which is Luke's story. You've got 7, 8, 9, the kind of sequel trilogy, so that's Rey's story. If you then split those up in different ways, so you've got 1 to 6 is Obi-Wan's story. So that's kind of, you're following his journey, kind of he trains Anakin and then has to kind of train the person who's going to defeat Anakin as Darth Vader, and then he finally kind of gets his rest. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's Leia's story. So she's involved in the rebellion, then she's involved in the resistance. But if you then look at all of them, 1 to 9, it's Palpatine's story.
Yeah.
His rise to power.
Yeah.
He makes the Empire in 3. He's the Emperor in 4, 5, and 6. And then kind of behind the scenes, he's involved in 7, 8. He's involved in 7 and 8, and then he appears back in 9 to kind of have his plan is to be killed by his granddaughter so that she then becomes a new Emperor Palpatine. So it's like it's interesting, just like you can split these up and view them in different ways as different with different main characters almost. So that's what
Just relating something that I was thinking, I don't think I actually mentioned this when we were talking about Kylo Ren's death. Just mentioning sort of them, I think they've been very good actually in this trilogy at echoing elements of the prequels as well as the originals. And I quite liked that Kylo Ren almost did a reverse romance almost to Anakin and Anakin and Padme, and he was actually able, this was like kind of his reward maybe for doing the right thing in the end. He was actually able to save the woman he loved, whereas obviously Anakin just led to destroying the women that he loved. So
it's basically his actions caused her death.
And obviously Kylo's actions, or Ben's actions in this case, because he's back to being Ben Solo, that causes Rey to, live and thrive, hopefully.
Yes.
So that was nice.
Well, she goes back to, I think it was, I can't remember, what was the plan?
It was Tatooine.
That's where she ends up. So she didn't go back to the desert planet she started off on.
Jakku, yeah.
Jakku. I was thinking that. Actually, I was thinking Yaku, which it might just be Animaniacs. So she ends up on Tatooine. So she goes back to Tatooine because that's the old the old kind of moisture farm. But it ended with the double sunset, didn't it?
Yeah,
that's one of the iconic shots of Luke.
Yeah, I mean, that was how he died in the last movie as well. There was the when just as Luke was dying, the double suns came as well, which was quite a beautiful ending as well. I thought.
So a few double suns coming in. So there we go. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think we've gone through it. We've probably missed some stuff out, but I think we've probably gone through most things.
We'll probably address those in comments or anything, I'm sure. So there we go. That's the end of our Rise of Skywalker review. So that's our podcast. We don't know if we're doing another one. We're going to see what happens with this one.
See if this one sounds
Consider
any
this
good.
a pilot. There we go. So thank you for watching, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.